Welcome to Nell I Model Railway. I'm John, ably assisted by Silver, my Weimaraner. In this video number 7, I will commence the build of Wandsworth Town Station, and it will be in a number of parts, this being part 1, the platforms. Before starting this project, I went on to Google Maps and Earth in order to get a rough idea of the layout of the platforms. Now you'll notice in my layout, as opposed to the actual thing, my platforms are almost straight but potentially curved in the wrong direction. That is to allow me to use the room and the space that I have. But here you can see a couple of images of the part of the platforms that goes over Old York Road, and you can see in the modern day version, chap is in orange, and the older version, people in suits, the difference between the structure over the road. You still have the girders, but in the old-fashioned photograph it's wood, but in the newer one it's metal gratings. So I've had to look at what I'm going to be doing, and I've plumped for something slightly more modern, i.e. the metal grids, and we'll come on to that later. You'll remember from video number 6, I made a platform jig for myself, and using an offcut of 15mm ply that I had lying around from the baseboards, which had a perfectly straight edge, I was able to use that combined with the jigs to create my datum line for each of the platforms. Just to ensure I had my calculations correct, I remeasured everything and worked out that I could make my platforms from 18mm ply sat on top of the cork, which covers the whole of the platform area at Wandsworth Town, and then use a 2mm MDF covering to be the platform surface. So I went ahead and toddled off to B&Q in Aberdeen and purchased some 18mm ply. Using Google Earth's measuring tool, I was able to work out from satellite images of Wandsworth Town the dimensions of all the platforms, and on measuring out the plywood found that although I would have to foreshorten the platforms, I would still be able to get all 3 platforms made from the single sheet of ply. So I was quite happy, seeing as that only cost £19. Once home, I set about marking out the ply using obviously steel rules, but I also was going to use a circular saw, a miniature circular saw. So I had to take into account the width of the base plate of that to the blade. So I had to add 20mm onto all of my calculations. But as you can see, the sawing commenced and I got my 3 platforms cut. And looking at these images, I think my initial calculations were fairly spot on. The second image, of course, doesn't have the 2mm MDF on, but I think once that gets added, it should be, as I say, spot on. I then proceeded to mark out where I needed to cut out the platforms so they loosely matched Wandsworth Town ends, and did this, as I say, roughly. I didn't cut out too much, and then made a new jig for myself, as can be seen, which allowed me to shave off smaller amounts of platform in order to get my clearances correct. For interest, here is the cover layers jig I made, which you've seen briefly used in the previous images. It is Slater's brick card to the height of the ply in the first layer, and then a 3 brick course followed by a 2 brick course, and once they had been glued, I added at 90 degrees 2mm MDF with the overhang that appeared to be correct for my carriages running on the straight sides of the platforms. Once I was happy that I got all the platforms cut to the correct size, allowing for the platform facings, I screwed the platforms down, and this was just an initial solidity fit. I then lifted the first platform and decided to commence attaching the walling. I only had enough plastic card for one platform to be completed with the walling, so opted to work on the platform furthest from the front of the layout. So I proceeded to cut out strips of card at 18mm heights, and then also the 3 brick height and the 2 brick height. Then, using Yoo-hoo glue, I attached the first layer directly onto the ply and allowed a number of hours for it to set. Then, using rocket plastic glue, I added the 3 brick layer and the 2 brick layer on top of that. All the joints were staggered, so hopefully it doesn't look too obvious. And here is the finished article pre-painting, and again, I'm quite happy with the outcome. Now I was faced with the issue of painting the walling, and in that area of London and around Putney, Wandsworth Town, a lot of the brickwork in houses and other structures is yellow engineering brick, but a lot of it is old and therefore aged, and also interspersed within the yellow brick is red brick to add architectural features. So I had to consider both colours when making my choices. For the colours I've chosen, firstly for the standard red brick, which I'm going to use for the platform edges, and some of the highlights on the architectural features elsewhere on walling, is Humbrol Acrylic Generation 2 number 70, which is a matte rusty red colour. I used this on the deal signal box back on Nell Town I, and the effect was really good once I'd actually done the mortar lines, as it dulled the colour slightly as well. Now, the aged yellow brick is a different kettle of fish. and I was thinking, or is it really yellow? But when you look at some of the photographs, it takes on a grey browny tinge. And as you can see from this test sheet, I've decided to use Tamiya Red Brown 2 XF90. And I think once again mortar lines are put in and I do a little bit of weathering with powders, etc., potentially some dry brushing, it will actually provide a fairly good representation. I did consider brick papers, which you can download from the internet, and I did use those on Nell Town I, but found that the colours faded and changed from the original colour at the original printing and took on a purpley tinge. Potentially the print cartridges that we use at home, but I felt that using paint was a much better option. Plus, it was more tolerant to the ballasting and gluing things down. So that's why I'm opting for paint. And here is the first platform edge painted in the Humbrol colour. I have added a coat of matte varnish to that, as I feel I don't want the paint to be worn away or disturbed when I do the mortar lines and any further weathering. But I'm quite happy yet again with how things have progressed here. In the next video, I will have received my next tranche of pocket money, and so I may well have been able to purchase more plasticard, so get the platform edges completed on the other two platforms and also get those painted. And once painted, hopefully we'll move on to adding the mortar lines and then being able to do the final screwing down of the platforms. So that'll be the next video, but also hopefully I'll be able to do some stuff on the laser cutter to add further detail between the tracks, and also consider the stairwells at the platforms. Thank you once again for watching the video, hopefully from start to end. And if you do like what you see and want to follow the layout build progress, please subscribe. And if you so desire, please click on the like button and the bell icon so you get notifications of when the next video comes out. Bye for now.